Season 3, episode 36 of the Daily Intermission podcast. My name is Greg. I'm in studio, and I'm fired up. It was a sad day for me yesterday, but we'll get into that in quarter 1 with the NFL, quarter 2 NBA, quarter 3 NHL, quarter 4 a little miscellaneous, as you guys know. But continuing on in the pregame show of episode 36, this episode is brought to you by Manscaped. These are the best tools for your family jewels. The Lawnmower 4.0, it's unbelievable. You know, it's great in the water. It's nick-proof. It's an unbelievable product. So you can use the code TDI at manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping. Like I said, you know, if you need a razor, a grooming kit, it's such a great product. If you need to update yours, I mean, I hope you're not bicking anywheres around that, those vulnerable parts. So listen, manscaped.com, use the code TDI. It's an unbelievable product. Go check it out. So continuing on in the pregame show, I'm going to stay away from a story this episode, but I am going to bring up a couple of viral clips that have gone on in Canada. I'm not sure. I know some of the audience is American, so I'm not sure if you've seen these clips. But the first is there's a mall outside of Toronto, and an individual smashed through the doors. It was like 3 a.m. with his car and was buzzing through the mall in his car. I can't even imagine what that would have felt like. Stopped at the jewelry store, robbed the jewelry store, and drove out, and they haven't found him yet. Obviously took the plates off, and they would have the make and model of the car, but you could get rid of that. I mean, it was probably a stolen car, but he drove through a shopping mall. If you haven't seen this, check it out online. He just barges through, like, you know how malls have those like kind of like 4 or 5 wide doors, glass doors. He just smashes right through them and drives to the mall. Quite a viral clip that has made its rounds this week in Canada. And the second, so Canada last week released kind of a health report, health guidelines in regards to drinking alcohol. And the report said, you know, it's unhealthy if you consume more than 2 alcoholic beverages per week. Obviously, this caused some uproar for the people who enjoy, their wine and their beer and, you know, whatever liquor you like to dive into. It caused a little uproar. And there's a lot of characters in Canada, and one being in Hamilton. So there was an individual at a liquor store in Hamilton. And cheers to the news individual who got this on camera. I'll play the clip now. Like, what a beauty. It's unbelievable. I don't want to get this twisted. This doesn't represent the entirety of the population of Canada, but this guy, some of the lines in there are very quote-worthy. I mean, it's not feasible, not in this country. I mean, it's an unbelievable clip. What a beauty. I mean, that's those are just a few clips that are making their rounds in Canada, and I'm sure you've seen them online in the States or wherever you're listening from. But a couple laughs to get things going here. But we're going to get things going in quarter 1, and I said it was going to be NFL, but it's going to be dominated by Tom Brady. I know that, if you're a diehard listener, and maybe you don't know, I'm not as vocal about it as I was in the past, but, Tom Brady was, really the driving factor outside of my father to play football, to get involved with the game of football. Some of my earliest memories from the NFL are Tom Brady, and he's really been a polarizing figure in the NFL just due to his dominance, really. Obviously, there's a few cheating scandals in there, but, I mean, he's just had such a phenomenal career, and obviously he announced his retirement for good on the 1st of February from the beach. It was an emotional kind of retirement, but, I mean, let's just look at this career. It's unbelievable. In 1999, drafted 6th round, 199th overall to the New England Patriots. He goes up to the owner, Robert Kraft, and says, this is the best decision that the organization's ever made. And it turns out it was. But you think about it, 1999. I mean, how old were you when it was 1999 when he was drafted? It's just so amazing how long his career was. 2001, in his second NFL season, obviously he sat behind Drew Bledsoe in his first season. He gets the call. Drew Bledsoe gets injured. And he goes on and he beats the greatest show on the team, the St. Louis Rams, who were nicknamed the greatest show on turf, 20-17, and really, obviously in your second season, the first action of your NFL career to win the Super Bowl. I mean, it turned some heads, and obviously, the second season, they don't see the success, but then in his third and fourth season, they go on to win the Super Bowl again. He wins 3 Super Bowls in his first 4 seasons in the NFL. In 2003, he won against Carolina, 32-29, and then beats Philly. in 2004. So he's won 3 Super Bowls. Think about that. He's won more Super Bowls in his first 4 seasons than Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers did in their entire career. It's just, it's truly phenomenal. And I think we take it for granted at times, how the sustained greatness and how long he was great for. And yeah, I get it. The Patriots are super well coached and they had phenomenal defenses through those years. But that era of Tom Brady, I don't relate to as much. And I think that I can speak to a lot of people that are in their 20s and maybe late teens and that are huge NFL fans. We don't really relate to those Super Bowls very much. Obviously, we're well aware of them and we know that they happened. And obviously, in the AFC Championship game against Oakland with the tuck rule and everything that goes along with those Super Bowls, we're submersed in, but we didn't experience. And maybe, I don't know what how the media was reacting and how everybody was reacting to Tom Brady in the early 2000s. But when I first kind of was a massive diehard was in 2007. This is when I remember watching the Super Bowl. I remember this undefeated run. And so obviously the 3 Super Bowls in the first 4 seasons, incredible. And then in 2007, the team goes undefeated. Randy Moss breaks the single season touchdown record. At the time, Tom Brady breaks the touchdown record, the passing touchdown record, and they go undefeated to the Super Bowl. And obviously we all know that they lose to the Giants in 2007, Eli Manning to David Tyree with the miracle catch. But that's when I personally started to kind of really fall in love with Tom Brady and the Patriots. And I think, so I was grade 7 at that time. But that's when I really started to follow Tom. So, and then, obviously the next year, I remember crying during this game. In week 1 of 2008, he tears his ACL and misses the entire year. Matt Castle takes over. In 2011, they go back to the Super Bowl. So he's been to 6 Super Bowls in his first decade of playing. I should say 5. And they lose with the Giants again. Mario Manningham down the sideline. And you think, oh my goodness, now he's 3-2 in Super Bowls, and what does this mean in terms of his overall greatness? And I remember that 2011 game like it was yesterday. And this is a good time to bring it up. I mean, Eli Manning. I mean, he is the kryptonite of Tom Brady, and that right there will be something that he'll be able to hang his hat on for the rest of his life. I mean, to lose to the Giants twice in the Super Bowl, that is tough. But yeah, I mean, the accolades that Tom Brady, is compiling during these Super Bowl runs and during these great seasons is just remarkable. And then everybody can remember in 2014, it looks like he's going to go 3-3. The Seattle Seahawks, they're down 28-14 and they're on the 2-yard line or the 1-yard line. And they decide to throw a slant pattern, which Malcolm Butler picks off. The Patriots win the Super Bowl. Brady gets his 4th. In 2014, things are leaning towards the GOAT conversation at this point. I mean, he's now tied Joe Montana for the most Super Bowls ever won. And I think that's when that's when he entered the GOAT conversation, I think, was in 2014. And then in 2016, the 2016-2017 season, I think this is my favorite. This is my peak, I think, of loving Tom Brady. Was the year he got suspended. So obviously the year prior to this, they stomped the Colts in the, I think it was the divisional round, like 45-7, and then there was the Deflategate. They were saying that Brady was using deflated balls against the Indianapolis Colts. And then he was suspended for 4 games at the beginning of the 2016-2017 season. And a lot of, it's a storyline that goes, under the radar, or not a lot of people were accustomed to hearing, was that Brady's mom was dealing with cancer that entire year. So he's been suspended for 4 games. Obviously, he's pissed. He can't be around the team. I think he went to Costa Rica, or Brazil, was training down there. But his mother was battling cancer, and his mother and father had been avid fans of following Tom and watching him play. But yeah, so Tom Brady's mom's dealing with cancer. He's been suspended 4 games, and we all know how he came back. He storms back. They make it to the Super Bowl against Atlanta, and they're down 28-3 late in the third quarter. I didn't know this pregame, but this was the first game that Tom Brady's mom was able to physically make it to. So she was in the crowd. He kept leading. Like, that was one thing. I remember watching this game thinking, like, they're not out of it. Like, obviously, everything had to go right in that third quarter. But Julian Edelman, everyone was so positive. Everybody on that team knew that Brady was playing with such a heavy heart and that his mom had finally been there for the first time that season. And obviously, we know they came back and won that game in overtime. James White punches in the touchdown to win. And that's when it's kind of like it's undisputed. I mean, you're down 28-3. All of the comebacks that he had accumulated through his career, all the game-winning drives, and to come back from 28-3. The next season to go back to the Super Bowl, but ended up losing to Nick Foles and Dougie P. And for all football fans outside of New England and outside of Tom Brady fans are just rattled. I mean, this guy is just reaming Super Bowl appearances. It's unbelievable, dominating the AFC. In 2019, they go on and beat the Rams 13-3 to win his 6th Super Bowl. And then obviously he leaves New England and goes to Tampa Bay and wins the Super Bowl for the first year he's with that organization. They beat the Chiefs 31-9. It's so incredible. 7 Super Bowls, 10 Super Bowl appearances. I'm not sure any of those records will ever be beaten. It's I had to devote this time to Tom Brady because, I mean, it's just such an incredible feat, career. And I mean, he's on the Mount Rushmore of athletes all time. The greatness. I'm not sure that 7 Super Bowls is even realistic for anyone ever to touch again. I don't know if anybody will ever be able to dominate the league. I mean, you might be able to think Patrick Mahomes can get to like 5, 6, but I don't know. Like the longevity of Tom Brady's career is so impressive. 5-time Super Bowl MVP. 3-time most valuable player of the NFL, 2-time offensive player of the year, and NFL comeback player of the year in 2009 when he came off that ACL tear, 15-time Pro Bowler, like most career quarterback wins, most career passing attempts, most career passing completions, most career passing touchdowns, most career passing yards. I mean, there's not really a statistic that a quarterback looks to have that, he hasn't broken. It's really incredible. It's a career touchdown to interception ratio of 649 touchdowns to 212 interceptions, career passing rating of 97.2. Tom Brady, man, like, you've just been such a pleasure to watch. And I know for all the people that hate him, like, I get you can hate him and you can say that he's been a system quarterback and you say that, he wasn't the greatest quarterback, but you have to understand that the quarterback position demands a lot more than just, looking, mechanically sound or athletically gifted. There's so many, the brain, the cerebral aspect of being a quarterback is massive as well. And his work ethic, and, what a testament to a guy who was drafted in the 6th round, 199th overall, and to be a 7-time Super Bowl champion, been to the big game 10 times. The stats and the accolades are just they're just off the charts. And yeah, I think that's enough talk about Tom Brady. And I know for a lot of you that will probably be sickening, but we really have to acknowledge how great Tom Brady was. But the NFL keeps moving on, and that's the beauty of the NFL. We look and there's content creators and there's great quarterbacks across the league that the league will be in great hands moving forward. Just some other news in the NFL before we move into the NBA. Sean Payton has joined the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos paid a pretty big compensation to the Saints for Sean Payton. So they're all in. They're all in on Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. And for good reason. I mean, you can't give a $250 million to a quarterback and then, kind of just, quit on him. Yeah, they're all in on Russell Wilson. And obviously last year was not up to standard. But my worry is look at that division. We're not sure what the Raiders are going to do at quarterback yet. I mean, it seems like that Jimmy Garoppolo might be an option, some familiarity with Josh McDaniels and maybe Aaron Rodgers, who knows. But they're looking for a new quarterback. But then you've got Justin Herbert with the Chargers and obviously Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. I mean, the Broncos are really going to have a strong season. So we'll see what Sean Payton brings to that roster. Obviously, they traded Bradley Chubb this year as well off that defense. So, and obviously, the Houston Texans hired, his name has escaped me, but defensive coordinator for DeMeco Ryans, defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, longtime NFLer. So that's a good hire as well, I think, for Houston. And a couple big hires, but obviously the Super Bowl just around the corner. We'll preview that in both episodes next week. We'll start to lean into what we're looking at the betting chart. Obviously, we'll probably be on the degenerate side of things during the Super Bowl, but we'll talk about that. We'll discuss that in the Chalkboard app. But Tom Brady calls it a career, and having a podcast, it would have been a disservice not only to me but to my Boston roots not to go through and reflect on what an amazing career he had and all the accolades he collected through his 23-year career in the NFL. All right, folks, moving into the NBA, and another GOAT discussion is going to be alive and well. We talked about it a few episodes ago, is LeBron James. I do want to note, actually, I'm wearing my winter jacket. I do have the heat on in the studio, but it is freezing. It's going to be minus 40 on Saturday here in Nova Scotia. So anyway, that's just a side note. I do, if you want to check on the YouTube page, I am wearing a winter jacket as I'm recording right now. But LeBron James is now 89 points away from breaking the all-time scoring record or becoming the all-time scoring leader in the NBA's history behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. That was butchered. And he's now fourth all-time in assists. So he's probably going to do that in the next week, you'd have to think. I mean, 3 30-point games and boom, he's now the leader. So he'll probably do that sometime next week. So my question is, what's that celebration going to look like? I mean, we look at the NHL, there's kind of a new age of like during their 1,000th point, like they'll leave the bench and the entire team celebrates. Like they're obviously going to stop the game. And I mean, I'm all eyes will be on LeBron. I think that all of the games from here on out are going to be nationally televised, which is nice. So, I mean, that's going to be a big moment, obviously, clearly. So that's going to be, games that I'll be watching and following closely, especially too with the NFL winding down and the NHL on their All-Star break. I mean, what a great time to just really hone in on the greatness of LeBron. I mean, I've never really, I mean, it's very similar to Tom Brady with LeBron. A lot of people kind of don't give him the credit he deserves and maybe aren't acknowledging the totality of the greatness of LeBron and the longevity, most importantly, of these two athletes. I mean, LeBron is just so incredible. But what's he going to do for a celebration? What is that going to look like? I'd say the bench clears. Does he drop to a knee and covers his eyes? You know what I would do if I were LeBron? I would head over and get the baby powder out and stand up on the scorer's desk and just give it a bang. But who knows what that's going to look like? Maybe we'll have some we'll have some discussions in the Chalkboard app about what our predictions look like in terms of LeBron James becoming the all-time leader in scoring in the NBA's history and what that celebration might look like. Damian Lillard, ladies and gentlemen, is having a monstrous year, and as of late, his last 5 games scoring have been 42 points, 42 points, 30 points, 60 points, and 37 points. I mean, this guy has been an absolute monster, and it's actually kind of a shame for Damian Lillard because the Portland Trail Blazers have never really done enough to surround him with talent. They haven't been all in, and he's been so vocal too about being loyal to the franchise and not leaving Portland. But you'd have to think, is there gonna come a point where Damian Lillard goes like, I want to go after it. I want to go after a ring. But Damian Lillard, man, I think that sometimes he goes a little under the radar. Like I think that he's probably a top 10 player in the NBA. His highlights from last night were just absolutely disgusting. But Dame, I find, flies a little under the radar at times, just due to the fact that he's playing in Portland. They're not always the strongest team. I know, when they had CJ McCollum, and I guess probably 2-3 years ago, they were a team that was finishing in the top 4 in the Western Conference, but they've never really been a big threat to win the NBA title. But I definitely wanted to give Damian Lillard a shout out because, I mean, the 5-game tear that he's on right now is just so nasty. It's been incredible to watch. Okay, so I wanted to bring up the Toronto Raptors, as I do most episodes when I'm in the NBA segment, but there's a lot of rumors circulating right now around Gary Trent Jr., Fred VanVleet, and OG Anunoby, and I think OG Anunoby will bring back the biggest haul if they choose to trade him. But there was an article written today about the New Orleans Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies both kind of eyeing each other up, sizing each other up, and them potentially being in a bidding war for OG Anunoby. But Masai Ujiri and the general manager of the Phoenix Suns were discussing some things when the Raptors played the Suns this week. So there's a lot of teams, it looks like, out west that are very interested in OG Anunoby. And, what's that haul going to look like? Where do people value OG Anunoby? And it seems like, too, if it's playing in the Raptors' favor, it could be a seller's market in regard to the amount of competition that could be, interested in trading for OG Anunoby. So it's 9 days away. Obviously, February 9th, so it's just, I guess, 7 days away. We're a week away from the NBA trade, or is it the 11th? It's 9 days away. I think it's the 11th from the NBA trade deadline. So there's going to be guys on the move, and I think the Raptors are going to be a lot of content. There's going to be a lot of content surrounding the Raptors. So I think they hold on to Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam, and I could see Fred on the way out, Gary Trent Jr. on the way out, and OG Anunoby on the way out. Them taking a few steps back and getting in the lottery. Pat Beverly, this is a guy that's growing on me a little bit. It's funny, man. It's crazy the power of Barstool. How far they've come in the last 20 years. But they've got some serious podcasts on the go. And right now, Pat Beverly has a podcast with Roan from Barstool, and he's kind of growing on me, Pat Beverly. I know at times like he's kind of like a Brad Marchand type figure, where he's a very in your face, clownish at times with his actions on the court, but as I'm starting to see some of his personality off the court, I'm really enjoying him. But he told a great story on the podcast about him attending LeBron James camp when he was I guess first year college or maybe even in high school, and he was just rinsing Chris Paul. I think his roommate was Steph Curry at the camp, and but Pat Beverly is a guy that's been growing on me, and obviously he's playing a big role for the Los Angeles Lakers, for the Lakers right now. That's a team too that they're going to continue to make some moves, I would imagine. So I was watching the Lakers and the New York Knicks this week, and Tom Thibodeau, the coach for the New York Knicks, if you haven't seen him, go look him up. This guy fucking needs to shave his head. Like that is a guy who is hanging on to his hair for way too long. I mean, he's got massive, like the entire top of his head is bald, and then he's got the patch up front, the balding pattern where there's kind of a circle. That he's got that grown out and gelled, and then he's got the back of his hair gelled, like combed over to the front. It's the greasiest hairdo I've ever seen in my life. Tom Thibodeau, dude, this is coming from a guy who's bald and decided to shave his head. Shave your head, dude. Like that's just disgusting. I did want to get that off my chest because that was just so clear. It was jumping off the TV to me. Like, buddy, you're really rocking that hairdo? Unbelievable. But just fun in the NBA, the All-Star break's just around the corner, so we'll have the dunk contest. We'll be able to preview everything like that, the starters, and I think they're going to draft. What they do in the NBA is they draft. I think they're going to do that. I think it's Team Durant, Team LeBron. Oh, it's Team Giannis, Team LeBron. So they'll draft live. I think it's going to be on All-Star weekend. So that'll be fun for the NBA, and I'm a big dunk contester, but I like the NBA. I like the NBA and NHL All-Star Game. I do believe that there should be a lot of improvements, but I am a guy who indulges into those. All right, folks, that'll conclude quarter two. We're gonna move into quarter three here, and it's pretty typical. As I finished the episode last week, Bo Horvat, captain of the Vancouver Canucks, was traded to the New York Islanders, and this news broke hours after I had finished recording, so I did want to talk about that trade. So going to Vancouver is Anthony Beauvillier, a prospect and a protected first-round pick. So what that is that if the Islanders this year finish in the bottom 14, I do believe, they'll be able to hold on to that pick. But years after that, after this year, it's unprotected. So say they were to finish third last the year after that in 2024, that will be the Vancouver Canucks pick. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a solid trade both ways. Obviously, it would have been nice for Bo Horvat to stay in Vancouver. He was pretty emotional, but the Islanders are one of the worst offensive teams in the league, and you bring in a guy who's having a contract year, or I shouldn't say like a career year in terms of goals. I think he's got 31 already, which ties his career high through 50 games. So, Bo Horvat's really going to help the offense there in New York. Is it going to help it enough for them to climb over the teams they need to climb over to make the playoffs? I don't know. I'm not overly confident in that. But Lou Lamoriello had to make a decision, and he pulled the trigger on Bo Horvat. And obviously, this is a month before the trade deadline in the NHL. But I think that it was getting really noisy in Vancouver, and I think that they found an offer that they liked. And Lou Lamoriello, I've heard through the grapevine that he'll go. This is our offer. If we hear any media outlets or anybody reporting it, it's off the table. And so Lou Lamoriello, I think he's pretty cutthroat in terms of the way he negotiates. But yeah, Bo Horvat heading to the island, and Anthony Bolivier prospect, I forget his name, a Ratu, I do believe, a bigger guy, and then a protected first round pick heading back to Vancouver. So they're not going to be finished. I do believe that there'll be some pieces moved out of Vancouver as they continue to rebuild, retool. Interesting. A report came out yesterday in regard to the viewership of the National Hockey League, and viewership is down across the United States, and I don't think that comes as much as a surprise. I think people are consuming their sports non-traditionally, and I think that the cable industry and the typical broadcast industry has really been disrupted in the last, say 5 years, just due to the fact with technology and accessibility online to finding streams and things of this nature, even streaming platforms in general, having access to these sports. Has really affected the numbers in the NHL, specifically in terms of the viewership on TV. So I don't know if that's extremely alarming, but I did want to talk about just kind of the overall, I guess, status of the NHL in regard to how it's consumed and how fans might be enjoying their hockey. And I think there's a lot of improvements that the NHL has to make. One, into showcasing their talent and really trying to get them more active on social media and trying to get more content, I'll say, from the NHL. I mean, we look at the NHL in terms of the star power across the league, and Alex Ovechkin, not very active on social media. Connor McDavid's certainly not active. I mean, he's one of the drier characters in the league. It's really unfortunate. I don't know if it's by management or if it's just hockey players are built a little bit differently. They don't love the limelight and the spotlight. But a guy who is kind of at the top tier of content creators and quotability is Brad Marchand. He had an interview last night before the Leafs game, and I mean they had a ton of content, and he was on Twitter beaking people from the Leafs media. But he was chirping Mitch Marner, and he said there was a question proposed by Mark Masters from TSN saying, do you like to chirp anybody in the Leafs? Is there anybody that you like to get into it verbally with? And he said, not really. There's not really anybody in the Leafs that likes to verbally engage with me. He said that Mitch Marner is typically talking about his dog and video games, and just kind of taking shots left, right, and center. He also took, I think, a low-key shot at the Maple Leafs by saying that the Bruins' sustained success has been due to the fact that people are willing to take pay cuts to play in Boston, and I think that's kind of a shot at the three moneymakers in Toronto. But obviously, the Toronto Maple Leafs outside of the playoffs have had a lot of success too, so it's not a huge shot. But Brad Marchand definitely took the opportunity yesterday, especially being in Toronto, where the media is definitely the biggest in the NHL, to give the media what they were looking for and to give some storylines pregame. Obviously, the Bruins went on to win 5-2. But yeah, and I'm not sure that the NHL, they're not doing themselves any favors with the hard cap, because it's really restricted some of the big market teams. I mean, when you look at Toronto's last 5 years, they haven't been able to do anything due to the salary cap, and it's really making in-season trades very difficult, making signing guys very difficult. And it's almost, it's tough for teams because, if you're going to give people, market value and what they're worth, I mean, you're only able to have, 4 or 5, really solid players per team. And for the owners that want to spend money, there's a limit to how much they can spend. So it's the hard cap has really made things difficult. And I think the new playoff system too needs to change. Like at this, we're at the All-Star break, and it seems like we already know that the Maple Leafs and Tampa Bay Lightning are going to play each other in the first round, and they're both two top 5 teams in the NHL. Like in any other league, that's ludicrous. That's absolutely ludicrous that the top 5 teams in their respective sport would play each other in the first round of the playoffs. So, and I know that I think the narrative behind that logic was that it would start to build kind of legacy, rivalries and things of that nature. But I mean, there's a lot of things I think the NHL needs to address. I'm not sure they're going to address it, but I mean, yeah, it's tough right now for hockey, and I think that they should go back to the 1 through 8 methodology, because then you get playoff races that go down to really the end. I mean, outside of kind of the first 2 spots, there could be a race for first, but I'm not sure there will be this year. But those the bunches of the middle in terms of home seeds and who you're playing, I mean, it just becomes a huge jockeying race, and that's so fun to follow. But like I said, with Toronto and Montreal having like a 90% chance of playing each other in the first round with 30 plus games left, I don't know if that's good for the NHL. So it's All-Star Weekend this week in the NHL, and that will happen in Florida. I talked a little bit about it last episode. Really excited about it. But interesting to note here, Seattle is not going to have a representative from their team. And there was a big uproar about this, but I think that they obviously would have reached out to, it was Matty Beniers who was going to be their all-star, tremendous rookie for the Seattle Kraken, but he was injured. So I think they probably tried to replace somebody from the Seattle Kraken, but let's face it, if you have plans, which, every single NHL player outside of the people attending and the All-Stars going to the game and contributing to the events and participating, they go down south. They enjoy themselves. They have vacation. They go to beaches and they go to maybe visit their family. I mean, they all have plans, and these plans have been made, well in advance. Especially too, if you know you're not going to be an All-Star, you're booking a plane ticket and you're heading down to have some vacation on a beach. I mean, most of these players have 7+ days off. It's unfortunate that the Kraken won't be represented, but I don't think I don't think it was the NHL. Like, the NHL had a player representative from every team. It's just Matty Beniers got injured, and then I don't think anybody stepped up to the plate from Seattle due to the fact that they're probably heading down south and didn't want to go. But yeah, so Friday night tonight we'll have the NHL skills competition, the fastest skater, hardest shot, accuracy shooting, breakaway challenge, and then there'll be a few events on the beach and the golf course. But I'm really excited for it. I love the NHL skills competition. I don't I don't really have an attraction to the game anymore, but I am really attracted to the skills competition. I love watching the hardest shot and the fastest skater. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that the record gets broken this year for hardest shot. I don't know who's it. I don't know who's in it, but I think the technology of sticks has advanced enough that someone is gonna absolutely rip one and break Chara's record. I think it's like 107. Maybe it's 111. Who knows? But that might be a really hot take, but I'm going to say it gets broken. The accuracy shooting is fun to watch as well, and some can see if somebody can go 4 for 4. And the breakaway challenge, I guess Roberto Luongo is going to suit up. So that'll be exciting. The NHL All-Star Game this weekend, they are on break until next Wednesday, so the content will start to slow down. And then once they start things back up, we're a few weeks away from trade deadline, and the playoffs are just kind of a month and a half around the corner. So things are about to heat up in a big way in the NHL. Like I said, NHL All-Star Game this weekend. Really excited about it. All right, folks, quarter 4 to bring things home. We'll talk about the PGA Tour. Obviously, there's a big UFC fight this weekend. What's his name? Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, will be fighting in a heavyweight bout. I'm more looking forward to next week. We've got Volkanovski taking on Islam. So that'll be kind of the UFC content. We'll follow along with the matchups, but next week will be the big fight in Perth. The PGA Tour, obviously Max Homa won last week at the American Express. Not at the American Express, at the Farmers Insurance at Torrey Pines. It was his 4th win, his 6th win all time on the PGA Tour. And on Monday, he goes to a skins game at a Muni course in Arizona and wins. So he's really feeling good about his game. I like Max Homa. He's great for the game. Obviously, if you don't follow Max Homa on Twitter, if you're unfamiliar with him, go check him out. He's hilarious. He's done a great job. I assume that Max will get paid out in the PIP. If he didn't this year, he will certainly moving forward. But this week, it's the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, and it's another 3-course tournament. So they play 3 days with amateurs. So there's obviously tons of celebrities that play. Josh Allen's missing the Pro Bowl in the NFL to play in this event. Aaron Rodgers will be there. Bill Murray. I mean, there's a long list of celebrities that partake. Jake Owen, country singer, that partake in the Pebble Beach Pro-Am, but they obviously play with the pros who are playing a tournament. But they play 3 different courses before the cut on Saturday night. They'll play Pebble Beach, Spyglass Hill, and the Monterey Peninsula. I was vocal last week. I like Maverick McNeely. He's my one-and-done pick. I could have taken Jordan Spieth. I do like Jordan Spieth. Matty Fitzpatrick probably should have been my pick. I do like Fitzpatrick, and I'm not sure where I'll use him later on down the road. Not at the Open, but I did want to save Jordan Spieth and Victor Hovland. The field's very weak. I've been, I talked about that a little bit last episode, but we'll be following along. But the biggest news is next week is the Waste Management Open. It's an elevated event. Obviously, people who are very familiar with TPC Scottsdale on the 16th hole, where it's a stadium, par 3, they rain beers down when there's a hole-in-one, and all of the big guns are playing. All of the top guns on the PGA Tour committed. It's an elevated event. It'll be a $20 million purse. Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay. I mean, you name them, they'll be there. So that'll be super exciting as well. We'll continue to follow PGA Tour. Listen, everybody, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you're on all the social media accounts. Make sure you're liking and sharing all the TikToks. You're liking and sharing the Instagram pages. You're checking in on the YouTube channel every once in a while. You're on the Twitter page as well. Hopefully, you guys are following across all platforms. But listen, everybody, enjoy your weekends. I'll be back on Tuesday. I've been saying that I'll be bringing on a guest. Maybe we'll have one for Tuesday, maybe not. But listen, guys, I appreciate y'all. Have a great weekend.